All right. And I'll warn you, I reached for my water earlier, and that's what set off the speakers. So if I get thirsty and need water, be warned. There could be noise. Don't know what else that could be. I'm going to talk about next generation discovery tools. I'm going to follow up a little bit of what Elizabeth said, but then I'm going to be a lot more specific as far as library catalogs and other ways that library users are searching for information these days. And I'm going to tie it a little bit into what she said about millennials. That'll be at the end. Before I get started, I know you guys have done some work with ViewFind here. Yeah, I see some heads nodding. Have you guys worked with the WorldCat Local project on the state level as well? So you've worked a little with that. Okay. I'm gonna give you a little tour of both of those, but I'm gonna highlight more instead of the features of them. I'll highlight more of what I found when I did a usability testing, since those should be somewhat familiar with it to you. And if they're not familiar with to you, you'll see the interface as I'm doing that. But first, to get started. It's the infamous lipstick on a pig. Sarah Palin said it last summer, and little did she know that she was talking about library catalogs. The first time I heard this phrase was 2005. I saw Roy Tennant speak. He's a California Digital Libraries person. And he used lipstick on a pig to describe a library who had redesigned their catalog interface and just thought it was really cool on the outside, but underneath it was really awful. And so it was just, changing the surface, putting lipstick on a pig. And so now Sarah Palin has taken that out of the library world and made it everything. But I'm using this metaphor as a way of describing kind of the history of catalogs. And that is, one thing I have found is that nobody has ever really been happy with their online catalog. I've only been a librarian for 6 years, and I've never liked it. I hated using one when I was a college student. And I found literature about this going back to 1986. And then the same person, who's Christine Borgman, wrote a similar article in 1996 comparing that catalogs still sucked, and it was pretty much just a rehash of what she had written 10 years earlier. So we all hate our catalogs, and we just kind of have to face up to it. Then, in 2006, North Carolina State worked with Endeca, which is a commercial search engine, and created an Endeca-based catalog. And I'm seeing some nods. I guess everybody has at least heard of it, probably has looked around at their site, so I won't go into that right now. If anybody wants a demo, I can do that later if we have time. Endeca was great. Everybody looked at it and was like, this is what libraries should be doing as far as search. It had a very structured, it had a less of a structured way of searching up front, and then it allowed people to limit their searches after the fact, after they had already searched. And so librarians everywhere are kind of like, ooh, this is great. Why can't I do that? And so we started talking to Endeca as librarians and realized, oh, NC State spent a lot of money on this, and they spent a lot of manpower. They have some great technical people there. And it was most libraries saw, oh, we can't ever do that. We don't have millions of dollars and huge technical departments, so it kind of got stalled. But there was so much talk about this catalog that library vendors were kind of getting scared that a library could partner with a commercial non-library search company and have this product that people actually liked. And so as a result, a lot of search companies, our typical ILS vendors, started coming out with their own next generation search tools around this time. So by 2007, 2008, most people had a product up, and we'll talk about those in a minute. Also, what came onto the scene around the time that Endeca came out was federated searching. And as most of you, see nods, know that this involves searching across multiple database platforms. Librarians either love it or they hate it. I'm seeing more people like, oh, I don't know if that's the end solution. They still have the problem with multiple interfaces. It's still very confusing to users. So I don't know where federated searching kind of fits into the equation alongside these catalogs. I'll talk a little bit about those two together. I'll also say around the mid-2000s, this is when I came out of library school. I graduated in 2004. And right around the time I graduated, and some of the people I went to school with, we had such a disenfranchisement, we were so disenfranchised with library catalogs and library interfaces as a whole that we really started pushing and shoving and saying we need to do things differently. And also around this time, social media and social networking became more prevalent in our society. And so we started doing things a little differently than what libraries and librarians have been doing traditionally. We started using social media and social networking in how we do things. We started realizing that what our users think about the library and how they interact with the library is something very important and one part of the equation into providing both good services in person and also good service digitally. And so we started seeing this cosmic shift, and we started talking about it more, and we realized we need to do a lot more work as far as getting our message out and making our libraries easier for the users to use. And so all these things kind of started to coalesce in the last 3-4 years, and so now we're starting to see a lot more next-gen catalog work, a lot more federated search work. We're really changing our interfaces in hopes of making them better for our users, as well as integrating what our user preferences is before we design them. And so that brings us to all of these other vendors that have created these catalog and catalog interfaces that are they're next gen, they're more Web 2.0. I don't know how familiar people are with some of these. Obviously, we've heard of WorldCat and Viewfind, and that's what I'm going to focus on. But is everybody at least heard of most of these? Have you guys seen interfaces that use these? Have you heard of Blacklight? It's a new one, and it's really cool. I can show you briefly what it is. Let me do that. Blacklight is a project at the University of Virginia, and it is very visual as well. I'm seeing our internet is slow, but it has come up. Maybe. And Blacklight, one of the things that kind of makes it stand out is that it's open source. So it is developed just by librarians at UVA. It's not tied to a vendor, which Viewfind also has that same model. But Blacklight really involved a lot of usability testing. Viewfind kind of was customized for just one institution at first. So I'll do our generic, I'm sure you have the same one, search. When I used to work at the University of Central Missouri, and everybody in Missouri was like, every search has to be Truman or Mark Twain. So I'll just do a keyword search for him so you can see what kind of the results are. But you can see it integrates a lot of visual effects. So you have the cover images. It also integrates other collections within the library. UVA has a lot of online collections. So you can see results from their different text collections. You can see results from different sources. So it's another option. Subject, you can see all the subjects that Mark Twain falls under. So it's another option. I really like it. It's probably my favorite of them right now, but I seem to change every month or so. And it's still a beta project, so. As I said, I'm going to focus mostly on WorldCat and Viewfind. If anybody wants to see anything more later, let me know. So Viewfind, I probably know a little bit about the history of it. Carly kind of just threw it out and said, here, play with it on a state level. It wasn't very refined. They just kind of installed it and said, play, which was great because we decided to play with it. And we really liked it at the U of I, and so we decided to kind of integrate it more and more into what we do. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what our installation looks like and give you a brief. I need to go back. So everybody has played with this, but one thing I did last spring was I did usability testing that Carly has really used a lot to see about the future of this project. So I'm going to talk a lot about the usability testing. I had people do a series of searches highlighting the different features of Viewfind and asking them what they felt about the results, what they felt about the interface, and what their attitudes were, period, about it. First of all, people liked that it was very simple. The single search box, which didn't really surprise me, the single search box is where everything was. They liked that it wasn't like Voyager that had a page full of directions and a whole bunch of drop-down menus and an advanced search feature that highlighted so much stuff that they didn't care about. So the single search box was probably the first thing that everybody noticed and said, oh, it's like Google, great, which kind of posed a problem because they thought it was just like Google, but under this cover, it's just another library catalog. And I say that kind of annoyedly because metadata in all library catalogs is going to be a problem no matter what we do. As long as we keep using the same metadata, we keep using MARC as our cataloging standard, we're still going to have the same problems under the hood no matter what the interface is. And I could go on a complete tirade about metadata, but I'm not a cataloger, so I'm not really informed, and I can't tell catalogers that what you do is horrible. No, because that's the way we've always done it, and it's too hard to switch right now because pretty much every library uses MARC, and to get that to change at this point is just going to be impossible. So there are people looking at other options, but for now, MARC is it. And showing that the metadata is a problem is one of my favorite searches, and it was the second search I asked people to do, and that is do an all-field search for James Joyce. And that also adds another interesting point, because people did think the single search box was like Google. They would put things in here exactly like they would in Google. Not how a librarian thinks they were, and how the catalog works, because that's how we've always done it, but because that's what Google is. One of the other searches I did was to find an audio recording by the artist Prince, and you'd be amazed at how many undergrads put audio recording by Prince in the search box. And, well, that's maybe what they do in Google, but it's not going to help them in Viewfind or any other library catalog. So I finished my James Joyce search. You can see the results. And I don't want to harp on metadata as the problem too much, but scroll over to the sidebar. This is where the metadata becomes an issue. You see author, Joyce, James, 189 hits. So you think, oh, that's the name. And you'd be amazed at how many undergrads I tested that didn't know who James Joyce was. Then you have Joyce, James Avery. Well, that's another way of doing his name. You also have Joyce, J.A. So you have all these, and I think that's it. I can do more, but you can see what others. Most of them are editors of James Joyce's work. But to most students, they want to see James Joyce. They don't want to see all these editors. This means nothing to them. So it's the underlying metadata problem that we don't have many standardizations in cataloging as to how we put an author's name. You know, James Joyce, do we use his initials? Do we use his middle name? So that's an issue we really need to start discussing and try and come up with some kind of standard. The other, let me go less, because we have a lot of authors, a lot of editors mostly. Another thing that came up quite a bit when I was doing usability testing was how we're pulling out metadata. We have these genre, we have era, but this meant absolutely nothing to our students. Domestic fiction, psychological fiction, epic fiction. So what did all that has to do? Bildungsroman, you know, a nice German term, which to most people is totally out. What our students wanted to see, they wanted to put their search into a single search box and have a list relevant to that search term, pop at them, and have that search already be ranked and all nicely packaged for them. So they don't want to go trudging through all of our metadata problems. They don't want to have to keep searching these facets. And that brings up the other interesting issue that Elizabeth talked about, and that millennials think differently than the rest of us do. And they have no tolerance for ambiguity. And the undergraduates I tested were more likely to just want to be spit out a relevancy ranked list of items that were totally relevant to their search terms. They didn't always understand what relevant meant to their search terms, but they expected the catalog to know that for them. Now our older students, our graduate students and our faculty that we tested really like these facets on the right-hand side because they did allow some more limiting. They had more tolerance for ambiguity. Not a lot, but they did have some more tolerance. They were more likely to go searching and say, well, maybe I'll look under James Avery and J.A. Joyce. But then in the next breath, they always said, well, why are there 3 James Joyces in here? Shouldn't it all be the same? And the other thing that talks about metadata and the standard vocabulary is our errors that are on this facet, such as era, and also, as I mentioned before, the genre. These are pulled out of the, and I'm not a cataloger, so I can never remember, there was one of the standard fields in the LC classification. And my usability testing really made me believe that people don't understand LC or any kind of subject heading, because these meant absolutely nothing to most people. If they saw genre, they wanted fiction, nonfiction. You can narrow it down further in saying historical fiction, but the whole like video recordings for the hearing impaired, that to them is not a genre. But that's put in the field in the catalog record as video recording for the hearing impaired, so it gets put under genre. Additionally, era was another very interesting result. You have all these, there's no standardization. Once again, it's a metadata issue. Most people thought era would be either centuries or like decades, and we kind of have that to a degree, but then we have 1775 to 1783 as one, and then 1775 to 1865. They overlap. That means, so era meant absolutely nothing. Most people thought era should be the year it was copyrighted, but because of issues with metadata, the era usually ends up being one of 2 things. One, it could be when it was actually published, not when it was copyrighted. So if it's a James Joyce writing, you know, that was republished in 2003, there it shows up, even though he's no longer writing, because he's dead. And so, you know, and what Old English, what does that have to do with James Joyce? So they really just wanted a list of when things were copyrighted. I mean, look at all these. There's just nothing that makes sense to most people when they're doing a search on James Joyce. They also wanted everything to be in English, like there's some in French and probably Gaelic. So era was another really big area of confusion. Besides harping on metadata, which I've already done way too much, I could talk a lot about how users just really looked at this catalog as a whole. Overall, they really liked it. Obviously in Illinois, there's some people that are not in Illinois, but we have Voyager, and can anybody enthusiastically say they love Voyager? No, we all hate it. And this, compared to Voyager, is a 300% improvement. It's not 500%, but it's so much better. Our users really liked that it was visual. They saw that it was really easy on the eyes. They also saw that it didn't give you a confusingly huge number of results. You can see it's showing 1 to 20 of 2,033 results for James Joyce. And we all know if you do a James Joyce search in Voyager, you'd get, there are more than 10,000 results for your query. And that scares our undergrad students. They were just so happy that it didn't say 10,000 searches. 10,000 results. At the end of my usability testing, I always ask them to do the same search in both ViewFind and Voyager, as well as in Amazon, and just tell me a little bit about what they thought about how it looked and what they thought the results were. And the first thing I always heard was, there's not a crazy number of results that came up in ViewFind. It wasn't the 10,000 that you would get in Voyager. Other things that people really liked as an improvement over Voyager is that it shows the availability right there on the front page, and it also shows the format. So you can kind of get a quick glance and see, oh, well, that's a book, that's what I need, or there's none for this one, but there's an ebook, yay, I don't have to come to the library. And so they really like being able to glance over that. But there's a lot of ambiguity as well. We all know that our students are told, find 3 articles and write a paper. So they would see this, and be like, oh, there's an article, it's a journal. Well, no, it's still just our print library materials. So it's not gonna get them anywhere, but they'd all get excited that there'd be one of their sources right there. So there's some, journals for undergrads. A journal name is the same as a journal article to them until they start really zeroing in and realize, oh, no, it's not an article, it's gonna be perfect for my paper. There's another issue with the availability indicators here. It says available, and then there's a little green dot. And everybody loved that green dot because it says green dot if it's checked in, red dot if it's not. But there is also ambiguity of, well, what about a reference item? I can't check it out, but it's checked in. So I recommended to Carly, could we have like a yellow dot? Saying it's available, but with restrictions for reserve items. They thought that was an interesting idea, but too hard to implement. I'll go into individual records. And once again, I hate harping on it, but metadata, totally confusing. People wanted the title and the author, and they didn't understand the whole series, topics. Topics is just kind of regurgitated subject headings, thinking, oh, people might understand the term topic better than subject heading. No. They'd rather have it be like linked to other information instead of topics. Because they would look at this and they'd be like, oh, you mean I can get more stuff on James Joyce based on this? And they didn't understand that at all. It was more of a, ooh, I learned something new about the library today. Also following up on social issues, social networking and library use, we all know ViewFind has tags. And that was something I was really interested in because, as librarians, we know what tags are. And we thought, oh, that's folksonomy and tagging. That's what our users want, right? And so we've been putting tags on library catalogs for the last few years. It was interesting that probably half of the people I did usability tests understood what tags were. Most of them said, yeah, I've heard what they are, but I've never really used them before. And so, we didn't have these tag-happy students that were going to go out and start tagging every single item, which kind of is different than what librarians are perceiving nowadays. And so I would always explain a little bit, well, this is what tagging is. It's about, putting your own keywords and so you can find the item based on what you think it is and not what some librarian thinks the keyword should be. And when upon hearing that, they were all like, ooh, that does sound interesting. So then I asked, would you tag an item? No. They'd love to have it available for retrieval, but they wouldn't actually tag. And I have one of the other questions I asked was to find a DVD of Gone with the Wind. And I had somebody who was like, oh, play with tags. And so they added tags and they wrote Gone with the Wind. Not a big help. So I think tags are exciting. I'm not really sure they're going to take off as far as what catalogs are using. Of course, the big topic lately has been Library Thing for Libraries, has been integrating some of their data into catalogs. You can buy their subscription to their tags. And I'm curious to see what's going to happen with that. UT Austin is probably the main big customer that has really integrated those. And if you look through their catalog, it's kind of hard to find something with tags because it's, UT Austin has these academic publishers and what people read on Library Thing isn't always the academic publisher. So there's some divide there. I have a library science student working for me who's working on her certificate of advanced study, and that's going to be her topic, is seeing how what people think about the Library Thing for Library tags. So I'm really curious to see what comes of that, because there really hasn't been a lot of research on that. But so far, she hasn't been impressed, I'll tell you that. We also have this tabbed area here that gives you some more details about the item. And so we can find it all about the James Joyce Society of Sweden and Finland, which I cannot pronounce. So it gives you a little more information. You can also leave comments about an item, which I never have found anybody who really is excited about leaving comments. A couple of the grad students I tested thought it would be great, especially if they had to make an annotated bibliography. They could just throw their stuff in there and be able to show it for future users. But when I asked people what they thought about having comments integrated into a catalog, if we did have a lot of them, and most people were very reluctant about it. And I was very surprised to hear this because even the undergrads I asked were kind of like, I'm not sure about the authority of comments, and both comments and reviews. How do I know somebody just walked off on the street and said, this is great, but it's not? There's no way of telling. You have to have a membership, we have to have a login for ViewFind to do it, but really anybody has access to our library, even our public patrons can leave comments. And so it was very interesting to hear that people had a concern about that. And the same thing goes for reviews. I don't know if there's reviews for this particular item or not. And there's not. But a lot of ViewFind, you probably have noticed, doesn't have too many reviews. And a lot of them are kind of pulled in from nebulous areas. They don't really say where they come from, or they come from some periodical that we've never heard of. They're not Choice or Kirkus or even Amazon. And people were really concerned. When I talk to people and say that some people have integrated Amazon reviews and reviews from other sources into their catalogs, most people were kind of like, I'm not sure I want to see Amazon reviews in the catalog because I see the library as being very authoritative, and I see Amazon as being more a free-for-all that anybody can post their comments, and I'm not sure that I want a scholarly library to have a free-for-all as far as comments. That was very interesting. And then you can request the item. I will say that even for records that have a ton of extra information, like they have reviews and a lot of details, nobody was ever happy with the amount of information here. They wanted more. And so I don't know how to pull in more. We have some Syndetics reviews. We have some data from Syndetics. We have no money. Like everybody else in Illinois, we have no money to add anything else right now. And so if people tell us more, but then they're like, but make sure it's really good stuff. And they're really, unless we'd go and manually start adding reviews, there really aren't very many sources that are feeding data into catalogs that are the really good stuff that librarians approve of. I'll say the ViewFind project in Illinois has been really, really good. We really like it. Now, we really like it for our users. We don't really like it as librarians. It doesn't have call number searching. And so if you ask probably 2/3 of our librarians if you'd use ViewFind in your daily job, they'd be like, no, it doesn't. I can't search by call number. And that ruins it all for them. I'm gonna get some water. Hopefully it won't start buzzing. Our patrons, though, love it. When they find it, they oftentimes go right up here to the click here to tell us what you think of ViewFind, and that sends an email out to several of us. And they're like, this is great. Why don't you have this as your permanent catalog? And why can't we have more like this? And well, because we have librarians that can't do call number searching. And that's the main reason why we don't. We do have a link from our homepage, though, so people do stumble upon it. And when when Voyager is being really slow and cantankerous, we go, hey, let's go to ViewFind right away. And our users are learning about it from there. But we also have the worry that Carly can pull support for ViewFind at any time. So we can't say what the future is. We're going to continue to offer it alongside Voyager, but Carly can say we don't have any staff time. We need to free up a server and pull it. So we'll have to see what comes of that. Does anybody have any questions about ViewFind before I go on? Yeah.
Two features that I see on the screen that intrigue me. The Cite This
Mm-hmm.
and the More Information Google.
Yeah. And those are, well, Cite This has been around since the beginning. What it does, it just pops up a little window and gives APA and MLA citations. But if you look at it, you go, oh, those are crappy. Because look, they have these little, it's using the same metadata. They have these little slashes. APA, I'm doing my dissertation in APA. It hates capital letters. And so you have the James Joyce Society for Sweden and Finland. Well, society should be lowercase. So it's as good as you want to make it. But our students really like that. And our grad students and faculty were quick to be like, there's an extra space before the 1982. And our undergrads would probably just copy and paste it into their thing and not look at it, but they really like this. I also asked if APA and MLA was sufficient for them, and they said, yeah, that's fine. I was kind of surprised. I expected to hear Chicago.
Now, is the cite this feature just exclusive to Viewfinder, or is it a part of your catalog too?
It's not a part of our catalog. Yeah, it's exclusive to Viewfind. Most of the next-gen catalogs, if you look around them, have some kind of citation, pull the citation out from the data feature. That's because, most of our online databases have that, and people really do like that. We also have the more information Google Book Search. I'll have to see what this does. If it's available electronically, it'll pull up some information, and if it has it, and doesn't look like it has much more. Well, they do have a little, we can tell you how long it is. This is new. The Google Book Search thing started, Carly added it after I did my usability testing, so I couldn't say how people used it. My guess, though, is that they would prefer to have the data integrated into the record instead of having to be a separate link. I mean, it's like just another thing to search, and they wanted everything to be in front of them. Oh, another thing that Carly did change as a result of what I did, yes, was the staff view, which is to see the MARC record. Before, staff view was a tab at the bottom here. So beside request item, between reviews and request item, there was a staff view, and I'd have users, click around and let me know what you think about all of these, and they'd look at that and just be like, oh my gosh, that's so scary. And it was like, yeah, and and they always ask, why do you have that there? And I'm like, because a bunch of cantankerous librarians love MARC records, and we never want it to go away. And so fortunately, Carly has kind of hit it a little bit more, so people don't stumble upon it as easily. One other thing I was just thinking about that I didn't mention before is, I have to go back to my results list, is Elizabeth mentioned that people don't go down to the next page, or they don't even like to scroll to the bottom. And that was a big difference I found with the different classes of users I used. Faculty, they'd keep going to page and page and page. Grad students, they'd go to the next couple pages, but that would be it. Undergrads, yeah, they didn't even like to scroll to the bottom. So if it's, and they were the ones who are most likely to tell me that when I expect my results, I wanted a ranked order of what is best to my search query, and that's it. So because I'm only going to look at the first couple of items. Another search that I did kind of pretty much required you to look on the second page, and most undergrads would be like, don't see it, oh, done. You don't have it. Well, so yeah, so that's a big difference. Yeah?
Question, and so that raises a question how these are sorted and how the relevance ranking works.
And we really don't know. That was the question I got, and I have never gotten a straight answer from Carly as well. Yeah, it's kind of based on the rank order of what Voyager says, which is still the engine underneath everything. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't always agree with it. Like, well, I'm on a different search now. I'll just go back to my James Joyce. But when I see James Joyce, I want the first thing to pop up is a biography about him or one of his seminal works, and I get something that looks like it's probably in Italian. Not going to be the first thing most people are going to run to. All right, well, the next thing I'm going to talk about is WorldCat Local. And as probably most of you know, there was a statewide, well, there still is technically a statewide pilot project for WorldCat Local, because OCLC really wanted to get our business. We're a big state, lots of libraries. Most of this were public libraries, but a lot of other people did figure it out too. And I need to go to back to our page. WorldCat Local, I'll say what we're doing at UIUC is we're not using it. And oh no, oh no. No, they probably took away our access this morning, It worked last night, I swear. Has everybody used WorldCat Local or have seen a demo of it? As most of you have. So it's going to forward us to the worldcat.org. No. Yeah, we're not using it at Illinois. And I kind of hate, it pains me to say it. My personal choice is WorldCat Local, so I was all excited to show you about it. And the reason why I really like WorldCat Local is because it deals with the metadata problem. WorldCat uses different data underlying the engine than Voyager does. And so a lot of your kind of weird, standard of how James Joyce does it, how different media file formats are handled, is non-issues in WorldCat. Yeah?
Oh, just if you want to demo it, you could use ours.
Oh.
This SIUE.WorldCat.org.
Yes. It might say, oh, you're not at the University of Illinois campus. We're not going to let you use it. Score. I'm going to do the same James Joyce search. We'll go and just use libraries worldwide. But you can see there aren't James Joyce. There's still James Avery Joyce. There's a lot less. There's still some editors. Oh, there's still quite a few. I'll also say, though, that, and I didn't highlight this in James Joyce in the ViewFind, but the format is much better handled in WorldCat Local than ViewFind because they did use standards. If you look at formats in Voyager, you have DVD cassette, you have DVD video, you have DVD disc, and things are done not, and formats are pulled out of a different record than what WorldCat, a different field in the MARC record. And this is the non-catalogator in me speaking. So in Voyager, it thinks of things as audio recording. It thinks of things as video recording, music score. It doesn't go into individual media formats like WorldCat does. So,
I have a question about
yeah.
the format. The articles,
Mm-hmm.
do students get confused about that as well?
Well, that's the other wonderful thing about WorldCat Local is that you can link directly to articles. WorldCat has integrated records from their first search databases. And I don't know how it works here. And I'll say that that's the reason why we don't use WorldCat at the U of I. So what this brings up is articles, article citation, not journals, but actual articles about James Joyce. Now, and we'll tell you which ones own it. Yeah, this is working better than ours. So it'll link up to either the database you've subscribed to, or as I'm seeing, it's not linking directly. Where is it? James. Yup, so we do have issues still. That's a WorldCat. I'm trying to find one that's opening. Let's look local. I should have limited it to just. Okay, this is not James Joyce, but we'll use it as an example. In the ideal world, and I think you guys have the same problem we do, in an ideal world, it'll link out to our open URL and just pull up the full text article right there and it'll be wonderful. Well, it doesn't, and that's why U of I has been very reluctant to use WorldCat Locals because it still has this thing of ambiguity and it doesn't just bring you the text to you. We also can't link it into our ILL, so that's another big issue. But yeah, you set links to the print. I don't know if your open URL will work. No, it links to your Iliad. It's so great that James Joyce wrote a nice article about heart disease. But our users really, really like that. The idea, and this is why I really think WorldCat Local has a lot of potential. It's because it's a single search box that links you to both the library's printed material and to individual articles, because our users do not distinguish between the two. Faculty do, to the most part. Undergrads, not at all. There's kind of a spectrum. Undergrads, not at all. Faculty understand it. And most people were like, even if I can't get to the full text directly from here, I can see that we have it, at least on print, or that it'll say, for ours, it says that we have it. It just doesn't link, the open URL doesn't work to link out to it. And they're like, that's so much better than what we have now. I'll take it that it's incomplete. And so I'd really like to see us look at worldcat.org, but we have people that are like, well, it's not everything, so we can't do it. The level of ambiguity is another issue that came into focus when I did my usability testing, because we have undergrads not tolerating ambiguity, and we have faculty that had a high tolerance of ambiguity. And Voyager, for most people, high level of ambiguity. If you find someone in the middle, worldcat.org had a lot less ambiguity, and our users really saw that. When I was doing usability testing, I first did viewfind and then did WorldCat, and I got to the point with WorldCat that it was like, I had to really stop myself from saying, I know you're going to love this, but tell me what your opinions are, because I just got glowing reviews every time. Whereas with viewfind, people were a little more hesitant, like, well, I don't know if this is really the way I would do it. I don't know if I really like the facets. I don't know if I would really use this for everything. With WorldCat Local, they were like, yes, it does everything. I love it. And one thing I learned through our usability testing is that our faculty and undergraduate students know WorldCat, and probably a full third of them would go to WorldCat to search for a book before they would go to Voyager, because it was such a friendlier interface. And if we didn't have it, they could link directly to ILL, which meant that ILL got annoyed because they would want to get it through iShare, but I was amazed that people were using WorldCat pretty much as Voyager. Other things about WorldCat Local that people really liked, they liked the refine your search versus the facets, because WorldCat is using different data, and as I've already demonstrated, it's not perfect as well. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm one of those cantankerous librarians.
Okay.
It's really the same data, it's just a different interface. So viewfind is looking at the same data, different interface, and in your viewfind, it's looking at the data that your catalogers have massaged a little bit. WorldCat Local is just doing the WorldCat database, not WorldCat.
Right. Yeah. It's the same data. It's just displayed a lot differently. You're right.
It is. The interface is very different.
Yeah.
The metadata is the same. The labels that they're using the label, I forget what it was, instead of facet, right?
Right.
But
It's the same stuff underneath, but it's more standardized. And I say that because well, I see the cataloging department back there, yes.
Viewfind, when it was era was coming from the subject headings, not from the
Date.
year is coming from the date. I think it was coming from subject heading.
And I would have to look it up, because I've had to ask our catalogers the same questions.
again, I think the point is, it's not the metadata, it's how the interface is extracting the metadata.
Right. Right. I'm harping on the metadata way too much, way more than I intended. But the column on the left, which WorldCat calls refine your search, is much more streamlined. It's how the users think. The year is the year. It's not an era. It's not a randomly selected, pulled out of a catalog record year. It's just a year. And for our users that are told they can't use resources more than 5 years old, this is a lot more useful to them than what viewfind did. Also, the content, a thesis dissertation in viewfind is classified as a book. It's not as a thesis dissertation. So this helps them find their information a lot easier. And so since everybody's used WorldCat, I'll go back to my original PowerPoint. And you probably have all heard, University of Washington probably has the ideal OCLC WorldCat setup. It works, ours doesn't, so I'll leave that for you later. There's a couple slides on how people search. I've talked about this a little bit as I've worked with stuff. We all need to understand our users' terms. And one thing I've really seen talking to everybody today, and what Elizabeth said, is that we need to understand exactly what terms our users are using for library terms, and not always use what we think are the library terms. And I'm going to add a link to my page that I'll tell you the URL later. There's a link on the internet. It's on John Coopersmith's page, and he did some usability testing, and he really pulled out exactly what terms the users understand and what terms they do not. So, and I can't remember them all offhand, but they don't understand what catalog is. They don't understand what tagging is. And he really kind of nailed it as far as what terms they understand and which ones we use. There's questions of authority, as I mentioned. I was very surprised people don't really care about to see Amazon reviews in the catalog. They want to see, reviews by professors in the field. They want to see reviews from librarians. They don't want to see reviews from their classmates. So that was very unexpected. They want full text. They want full text everything, and they want it now. We all know that. And that's why, but they expect when they see a journal coming up in ViewFind, they think, oh, I can click there and get the article. Oh, wait, no. And so they don't understand what the underlying data is there. They really like the facets and the ability to limit after searching instead of before. And I haven't focused as much on this, but the whole idea of discovery instead of searching for known items is one that we're going to hear more and more about. And the facets and the limiting afterwards enhances that feeling of discovering items on their own. And that's something that everybody really appreciated. Boolean, we all love it in libraries. Our users don't use it. Not at all. I think I had, of the total of 30 tests I used, I think I had one person that actually used a Boolean logic term. Most people just put like, if I had them do an audio recording by Prince, I had audio recording Prince, not audio recording in quotes with an and then Prince. So they, Google really doesn't use Boolean. They don't either. I mentioned earlier the first page of results is what most people looked at. The first page, that's it. Patience, and this also goes with that whole kind of range. We have undergrads, no patience. Faculty had patience. Goes with the tolerance of ambiguity. I was amazed, some of the more complicated searches I had people doing, undergrads, they get bored and say that we don't have the item after about 30 seconds. We had faculty that would search 3 or 4 minutes and then finally decide, well, maybe you don't have it, but I still think it's there someplace. So the idea of patience and how our undergrad users don't have it was really one that really kind of stuck out. And also the idea of literal searches, and this goes with the single search box in the Google and how people search Google. The example I used before, people put audio recording by Prince, because that's what I told them. Not select audio visual from the drop-down menu and then do an author search for Prince. It was, I just want an audio recording by Prince. I also had people find a DVD of Gone with the Wind. DVD of Gone with the Wind was one I saw several times. I was like, but no, you can use the limits at the bottom and select DVD. And that was not in their vocabulary at all. And I know we're running short on time. I want to briefly give a plug to some colleagues of mine that is tying what I did into kind of what Elizabeth was talking about earlier. At the U of I, we're doing an undergrad research project. And I'm not directly involved with this because I don't work too much with undergrads. I work mostly with graduate students and faculty. But our web services librarians and several librarians from our undergraduate library have been, for the past year, going and doing ethnographic field testing of undergraduates and how they do library research. So pretty much we tell them, think of the last paper you wrote. What did you do first? And I think they've done 25, and like 2 people have said, oh, I went to the library first. Most of them go to Wikipedia, or most of them go to Google first. So it's had some interesting results. And this is where I need my notes because I didn't work on this project. But a couple bullet points of that was really interesting of what they did is that they have a very vague concept of what scholarly research is to them. It's all scholarly. If the library has it, it must be scholarly, which was kind of scary to a lot of people. They scan, they don't read in depth, and they use Wikipedia to find the really good citations. That's where they start. They don't start doing a little treasure hunt looking at citations and articles they find in library databases. They really do start at Wikipedia. They also, one of the other big results is that they prefer to have one resource to search, not all these little ones. The federated search concept is very important to them. We do have federated searching at U of I, and it's really heavily used. And we'd say, well, have you ever used our we call the online research resources, which is our database of databases. And they're like, nope, I just use that search box. It's on the homepage. It's all I know about the library is that search box. So that was really sobering to a lot of librarians because we don't use that search box. And when we give instruction, we tell people, go to our databases, don't use that search box. There's a big disconnect from there. They also want direct answers. Well, we all know this, but they want direct answers from librarians. They don't want us to say, well, I think you should go to this database and here's how to get to it and enter these search terms. No, they want the articles from us. So there's a huge disconnect from there. They also don't feel very confident in their search strategy. They know they're not doing it right, but they have their own way of doing it and that's how they're going to do it. And they don't like asking for help. They're really scared of feeling incompetent when they go up to the librarian. So that's why they don't come to us. That's been really interesting. One quote I have is, asking a librarian is a symbol of failure. Yeah, so that group they're starting to release data, and they did an ACRL presentation last year, but you're gonna see more from them. They've had some really interesting stuff. And I could probably talk all day about what they've done, but so they're fascinating. Any other questions? I see we're at noon or a few minutes after. Yeah?
How do you select your students for your usability study?
Which ones we can bribe the best? That's a really...
Is that a scientific approach?
No, and that's a problem that everybody has.
What does that say about the validity of the testing?
Well, that's one question that we're starting to ask ourselves in the library world is, yeah, how valid is it? Nobody has ever done a scientific testing of, trying to get an accurate sample and, making sure, we're sampling every certain number of student because it's really hard to get volunteers. Undergrads are easily bribed. Graduate students and faculty are not as easily bribed. Everybody I know that has done a usability test, at least at the U of I, has pretty much waved money in front of users and gotten to volunteer. Now, I'll say though, that I recruited most of my undergrads for this project based on a sign in our undergraduate library saying, I can't see the dollar amount, but that we'll give you a gift card if you spend half an hour with our usability test. And we got quite a few people that way. We had other people that spread word of mouth saying, oh, you can get $15 for just searching the catalog and you might learn something too. But I got a really good sample. I asked basic demographic questions. I didn't feel like I was just getting the upper middle class kids from the Chicago suburbs. I had a lot of diversity. I had some international students, pretty equal as far as gender, very diverse academic disciplines. So I really wasn't worried about my sample that much. And also, there's the other thing about testing 5 users is 5 users, you're starting to see some saturation in your data, and you see a lot of similarities, and I definitely did. I had a lot more funding for my WorldCat local usability than my ViewFind, and so I did a lot more tests. I just did 5 in each user area for ViewFind. WorldCat local, I did a total of 45, and it got so repetitive, I could tell what these students were going to tell me. So 5 users in each demographic is, I think, it's still a very good number. Yeah?
I want to comment on Elizabeth's stuff about finding the dream. So as far as the catalog, you talked about different approaches to it, from the undergrad to the faculty. Which is the dream?
And that's the question I can't answer. I'll go to my last slide. The future, it's a lipstick on a pig, but with ponies and sparkles and wonderful, be optimistic. But I don't think we're there as libraries, and I think we still have a long way to go, and I don't think anybody can, I think we're all having a trouble interpreting and enunciating what that dream is for our users. Our users' dream is to have full text delivered to them in their office, in their dorm, have it be available all the time. That means their books too. And I mean, we're under so many constraints we can't do that. And right now, we don't have the technological capabilities to do that. So there isn't a good answer at this point. I see some things on the horizon that may be getting there. First is Summon, which is by Serial Solutions. It kind of integrates federated searching and catalog data into one thing, into a nice, pretty interface. I think that has some potential. And also University of Rochester is doing the Extensible Catalog project. We haven't actually seen any concrete evidence to come out of that yet, but I think that has a lot of potential too. So yeah, I don't know what the dream is, and I don't think anybody fully knows what the dream is. Anything else? And my slides, I have them. There's a URL there, and we can send that out in the email as well. And my slides are there, along with links to pretty much every catalog there is. Oh, I don't have a link right now. And my slides are on SlideShare, and they're linked from the page that's on that URL. And feel free to email me, or if you want to yell at me for metadata, go for it.